my honor and privilege to be here at Monster Bash 2011 with the great, the legendary John Stanley.
Only in my own mind.
No, and to many others too. That's the reason that you're here with us.
Well, thanks anyway.
Yeah. So John Stanley of Creature Features in San Francisco. John took over Creature Features from another legend, Bob Wilkins. So it must have been big shoes to fill for you. How did you feel?
You better believe it. In fact, quickly, what happened was Bob had been doing the show for about 8 years, and I had known Bob from the very beginning. I was the first Bay Area newspaper man to interview him, and so our friendship had developed over the years, and I had been a frequent guest on his show. I had produced a motion picture called Nightmare in Blood, which was made in the Bay Area. Bob had a small part in it, and so we had done a few shows regarding that, and he would call me in sometimes as an expert to discuss a movie or some new films that I had seen. So when I heard that he was going to leave the show, I heard from the publicist, Channel 2 publicist. So I got on the phone immediately, calling Bob at home to talk to him because I thought it would make a good story. There was no other motive for doing that. Just, hey, I'm a newspaper man. Here's sounds like a good Bay Area entertainment world story. Well, he comes on the phone, and the first thing he says is, John, I think you should be the one to take my place, and I'll set it up for you so you can talk to the execs. And my mouth is open. Huh? You know. And the next thing I knew, you blink your eyes, and I was having lunch with the two executives from KTVU Channel 2, and through some weird set of circumstances, I got the job. So Creature Features lasted for 14 years in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I had more or less thought it was part of my past. And out of the fog of life one day came a fan named Tom Wersch, who had grown up watching the show, and he wanted to publish a scrapbook about me and about Bob Wilkins. And I did my very best to talk him out of it. I says, nobody cares about this stuff. This is a program that's been off the air, for 15 years. Why would we want to do this? Oh no, there's a fandom out there. There's a movement. So I decided, okay, what have I got to lose? So the scrapbooks were published, and Tom urged me to start going to the shows again, the Bay Area sci-fi comic book shows and things, and we started making some personal appearances. And Bob Wilkins, my predecessor, was living up in Reno, Nevada, and we were able to convince him to come down for some of the shows. And I remember the memorable moment. There was a theater in Oakland, California, and they wanted to put on a Creature Features revival night. And so they arranged for us to arrive in a limousine, in a stretched-out limousine, and they had a red carpet unfurled.
Not the kind of treatment you received back.
In front of the theater, through the door, So we pulled up in the limousine, and there were cameras and TV guys and stuff, and Bob and I walked in on the red carpet.
You must have really felt like you arrived at that moment, huh?
And it was kind of an eye-opener. It kind of made me realize that there was a market for this, and if you look at the table here, you will see there are books now, there are DVDs. Some of the DVDs are the old shows. We anthologized them together, and we even took some material and created some new kind of format where we now introduce some of the old material, but with new material we've shot, to try to, again, another way to try to keep the old franchise alive.
It seems to be alive and quite well. I mean, just based on the books. My introduction to you, I'm an East Coast child, so my introduction to you was actually hearing your name whispered in trade publications and things like that. People would
picture on the post office wall, right?
Right. and then lo and behold I was a TV horror host, which I picked up, and I loved it. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. And then from that, I went further and got your Creature Features movie guide. For those of you who don't know about the Creature Features movie guides, it's very small encapsulated reviews that have this they're very direct, and they're very humorous and witty and funny.
Well, I tried to bring, again, that sense of humor to it. You know, if a film's really bad, you may as well have some fun describing it, you know. But the reason for the book was to attempt to try to review as many of the films that had been made in the genres that we cover, right from the silent era right up to the modern times.
John, I really wanted to ask you about this film right here. This is Nightmare in Blood. Which I have to tell you, I love this movie. I think it's a lot of fun. You have Malachi the vampire. You have
this movie actually comes out of the Bob Wilkins era. At that, Bob had been doing the show for about 2 to 3 years, and I had this idea. I collaborated with someone I worked with at the San Francisco Chronicle, an artist. We wrote a couple of books together too. But we decided to do a story set at a horror convention and have a story that dealt with fandom, the fans who come, the people who come to a show, a horror show, a convention. And our main character was a Hollywood actor who played vampire roles, so he's the guest of honor. And the PR men who come with him, they're the killers, you know, they're his killers. And and each of our characters represented a different element of fandom. The mystery, those who love the mystery horror shows, the beautiful woman who represented the femme fatale, the woman in peril, you know. Each of our characters sort of symbolized. We even had the owner of a comic book store named Gary Arlington, who is based on Gary Arlington, the first man to have a comic book store in San Francisco. And Bob Wilkins allowed us to use his set, creature feature set, because one of our characters was the host of a TV series called Fright Flicks.
That's right. I remember that point. Yeah.
And so we used Bob Wilkins' set.
So the inspiration for the Star of David to repel the vampire, it's a stroke of genius, but...
Oh, yeah. Sometimes, John, you had a very serious element of horror brought into this, which was the extermination of the Jews by Nazi Germany, because one of our characters is called the Avenger, who is part of the Haganah, the Israeli underground that is seeking a war criminal who's escaped to America. And, of course, the war criminal turns out to be the actor, the blood-drinking vampire actor from Hollywood.
It's very appropriate.
Yeah.
It's a good film. And Jerry Walter as Malachi, I really enjoy his performance in that.
Jerry was a very... kind of a forgotten actor by the time we met him. He had played Jack Armstrong on the radio and had a career off and on in films. Nothing very memorable, nothing very big, unfortunately, which I never could quite figure out because when you met him, he had this powerful strength. And for some reason, he just hadn't been found by anybody.
Yeah. It's brilliant, and the shots in the comic shop. But this was actually a real standing comic shop, I take it.
No, actually, that we found a vacant storefront, and Gary Arlington, the comic owner I mentioned, he brought some of his comics and equipment and supplies from his own store.
It looks wonderful.
And he dressed this empty storefront. So we were able to use it as a comic book store. We got the writing on the window, you know, lettering on the window.
So did the real Gary Arlington dress in the monkly robes?
No, we had an actor who did that. But Gary was there. He was on the sidelines dressing the sets. And
cheering everybody along? Cheering
everybody, yeah, right.
It's wonderful. It's really nice. It's been wonderful talking to you. And,
well, it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate you even remembering Nightmare in Blood. There are so many movies out there, and the movies, you know, our movies come and go very quickly sometimes. And it's just one of those relics of my past.
Well, this one for me, it stays.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
TerrorTransmission.com